The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
What's up, fight fans, and welcome into beautiful Las Vegas. We have been here a lot over the last 2-3 years. That is the UFC Apex, which has become home to a lot of these UFC fight nights. It will be the home to another one on Saturday, a fight night between Mackenzie Dern and Xiaonan. Hello, everybody. I am Brett Okamoto alongside Ian Parker. After a very, very rare week off from UFC action, we are back. We hope you missed us as much as we missed you. Ian, how much did you miss betting on UFC fights last weekend?
A ton. Didn't even know what to do with myself. I don't think this should ever even be allowed. And yeah, Dana, if you watch the show, if you can hear us, please, no more weeks off. I don't like it.
Yeah, and that's he's not joking. I received several kind of depressed, panicky texts from Ian on Saturday, really, truly not knowing what to do with himself without any action inside the octagon. So thankfully, that short break is over, and we are back in action this Saturday. But before we look at this weekend's card, let's take a quick look back at 2 weeks ago. We had Corey Sandhagen taking on Song Yadong in a UFC Fight Night. How did we do, Mr. Parker?
Well, Basharat got us to win. He looked great after round one. Giles and Kosi not going the distance. That one really surprised me. It was probably one of the worst fights of the year. Sarah McCann, Aspen Ladd fight did not happen. Bozer, man, we thought he had that fight won. He lost. And then Bijo Pfeiffer and Corey Sandhagen back-to-back wins. We're going to move on to this week. We got a lot of best bets, a fun parlay, and a long shot. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I was bummed we didn't get to see that Sarah McMahon card. That was your only pick for best bets last week. I know you've been doing, or 2 weeks ago. I know you've been doing this a lot, but with the plus money, I thought that was a really interesting pick there against Aspen Ladd. Unfortunately, Aspen Ladd misses weight, and now she's no longer even with the UFC. Something to talk about maybe another day. Let's look at this main card this weekend. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can see it on ESPN Plus. The prelims start at 4 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be talking the main card first. There are 6 fights to talk about. Again, I already mentioned number 5 ranked strawweight Mackenzie Dern taking on number 6 ranked Xiaonan. You've also got Randy Brown. There he is, Francisco Trinaldo. The man is just still going strong at 44 years old. Hyone Barcelos taking on Trevin Jones. Sadiq Youssef on the card. He was supposed to have a big fight against Giga Chikadze a few weeks ago. That didn't happen. He's taking on a newcomer in Don Shana. So a lot to get into here on this main card, Ian. Let's start right at the top. Mackenzie Dern taking on Xiaonan. Now, Mackenzie Dern, 5-1 in her last 6. I am impressed with her. I think a lot of us are. I think that she came into the UFC a little green, but she's shown a lot of will to win. You know, she's not afraid to mix it up. She's not afraid to force the issue and get the fight to where she wants it. And when she gets it to the ground, obviously we know how dangerous she is. Xiaonan, the split decision loss against Marina Rodriguez in her last fight, which Rodriguez is very good, but she had big problems against Carla Esparza the fight before that, and I think the market has adjusted on her. You know, she was a minus 135 favorite against Esparza. Now she's been a pretty significant underdog in her next 2 fights. She is plus 200 here. What do we think about this 5-rounder between Dern and Xiaonan?
You know, this may come off a little too simple here, but for me, if Mackenzie Dern can't get the fight to the floor, I think she's going to have a lot of problems here. Xiaonan in that fight against Marina Rodriguez, a lot of people thought she won that fight. But look, to your point, Brett, Mackenzie Dern is known as a submission artist, as we see with that arm bar right there. We know what she can do on the ground. What's been impressive about her is her striking game. It's getting better. It's becoming more technical. It's not as sloppy. It's not as predictable, where we know she's using it to get the fight to the floor. She fought a very good kickboxer in Tisha Torres in her last fight. However, against Marina Rodriguez, we saw her struggle outside of that one round where she had full mount for almost a whole round. If she can't get the fight to the floor against a really good boxer with good cardio and good volume, she struggles a little bit. And Xiaonan is a very physical athlete. She's tough. Now, we talk about Carla Esparza getting that takedown, but there's a big difference between the wrestling of Carla Esparza and the jiu-jitsu of Mackenzie Dern. If you go back and watch that Xiaonan fight against Marina Rodriguez, I scored that fight for Xiaonan, even though we had Rodriguez as a best bet. She's a very talented striker. She has to keep the fight on the feet. If she does, she may surprise a lot of people. I think these odds are a little too far for this matchup.
Okay, so you're kind of tipping your hand here about where you're going to go with this card. But again, talk to me about a little bit of confidence-wise. You know, it sounds like you think the line is too high, but are we confident here that Xiaonan can defend those takedowns? Because again, I go back to one of the things about Mackenzie Dern is that even if she's getting pieced up a little bit, she will bite down on her mouthpiece and she will go. She will try to force those takedowns, and she's got 25 minutes to get it done here. Do you like Xiaonan here at plus 200, or is you just seek a little bit of value, but you understand that Dern is a favorite to win the fight?
I understand the reason why Dern is the favorite here. You know, getting that win over Tisha Torres, who's highly ranked, who's been, you know, around for a while, and Xiaonan having back-to-back losses. The odds, you know, I get it. However, I just think there's a huge disparity in the striking here and the physicality against the cage. You know, Mackenzie Dern is not a wrestling takedown type of fighter. To your point again, she will bite down on her mouthpiece. She will take one to get that takedown if she can. The question is, it's the same thing with the Marina Rodriguez fight. Can she get the fight to the floor? And if she does, she has to finish it, or else, you know, for me, if you're going to pick one side, I think the odds are too heavy to go on Mackenzie Dern over 2-1 favorite. You know, but for me, I actually like over 2.5 in this fight. I think Mackenzie Dern is extremely tough to put away, even if it's on the feet. And with Xiaonan, if she can't get the fight to the floor, I think this goes a little bit. So for me, the play is going to be over 2.5. For those that want to bet one side, I think taking a shot on the dog is not the worst option here.
All right, dog or pass, as they say, but the official pick is over 2.5 rounds in the main event at minus 140. Okay, let's go to... Oh man, Ian, sometimes, you know, we talk about these fights and I'm like, I have no idea what to do with this fight. It's a welterweight bout between Randy Brown and Francisco Trinaldo. Brown has looked outstanding, man. He has really been one of those guys who has jumped off the screen. You like what you see in him in a lot of his recent fights. 5-1 in his last 6. Fun matchups. You know, I threw out an idea that maybe he should fight Michel Pereira. I would think that matchup would be great. Instead, he gets Francisco Trinaldo, who is also 5-1 in his last 6 and 44 years young. This guy looks like he is still going strong. 5-1 in his last 6. Unbelievable. He's coming back at plus 250. Randy Brown, as good as he's looked, minus 310 against Francisco Trinaldo. Sounds like a bad idea to me, but is Randy Brown just that good? Are we taking Randy Brown here?
I think the odds of the 3-1 are based on the stylistic matchup here. You know, Francisco Trinaldo can get the fight to the floor, but he chooses to stand and bang. He's not a high volume striker, but he's fighting someone who just has a tremendous reach, who's a little unpredictable for striking. I think will be faster. But Trinaldo, as we saw against that fight against Danny Roberts, he still has the power. He's still creative. He still comes forward. And, you know, what is he, 43, 44 years old? Guy looks like he's 23. He's the true definition of the fountain of youth. However, I think this is where the win streak does end here. I love the durability of Trinaldo, and I love that he's able to compete at this level, and he's winning, and he's doing it in very solid fashion. But I think Randy Brown just has too many tools. I do think youth will play a factor here, but I think the reach, I think his speed will definitely help him. You know, he just has to stay off his back, stay away from the clinch, and allow the knockout. Well, I don't think he's going to knock him out, but allow the strikes to come. Don't force the power. Let it be there. You know, for me, I think this is an important fight for Randy Brown to truly win, because Trinaldo secretly flies under the radar with these win streaks. And if he gets to win over a guy in Trinaldo, then I think a fight against Michel Pereira is a fantastic matchup. But we're going to go Randy Brown by decision. I don't want to lay the juice. However, at plus 120, Brown to get it done with the durability of Trinaldo, I like that play.
Okay, so bring the odds down a little bit, go for 3 rounds. And hey, look, you know, we're going to get to see these guys for years to come, because Randy Brown is just entering his prime, as is Trinaldo. This guy will probably be in title contention by the age of 50. Let's go to Hyone Barcelos versus Trevin Jones. You know, both these guys on a 2-fight skid. Barcelos has shown, you know, glimpses, flashes of promise, but he's 35 years old now, so we're not talking about, you know, a young kid here. He's taking on Trevin Jones, who is from Guam, also a 2-fight skid, like I mentioned. The odds here, Hyone Barcelos, you can see what I talked about earlier. He's shown some glimpses. He's shown a lot of promise here in spots. He is minus 230. Trevin Jones coming back at plus 190. We like the dog here, or are we taking Barcelos with some of those things that he's shown?
You know what? A lot of people were really high on Barcelos for a while. He's had a little bit of a skid. The fight against Victor Henry, you know, I think people were just maybe discounting how good Henry was just because he wasn't in the UFC yet. Barcelos, I just believe, has way too many tools here to let this fight slip out of his hands. And it's nothing against Trevin Jones. I think Jones is a tough fighter. I just think skill for skill, Barcelos is really better everywhere. You know, we saw in the Henry fight, he was able to hang around. The cardio was a little bit challenging because Henry put on just a ridiculous pace. I don't see Jones doing the same thing here. You know, we've seen when you press the action on Jones, very hittable. We've seen him dropped early, you know, and sometimes you just can't keep up, and you just can't always come back every single time. I think this fight streak goes to a losing of 3. I like Barcelos here, but I think Barcelos gets it done by decision. I don't think he puts Jones away. I think he's going to just try to really get the win here and not go for the knockout.
Oh, okay. So we're taking Barcelos, but we're again, just like the last fight, we're going to pick the method and get a little bit of better value there. I like that. Okay, going to the featherweight division, you got Sodiq Youssef, who was supposed to fight Giga Chikadze on September 17th. He is now fighting newcomer Don Shainis, who is, not a spring chicken. This guy's amateur and professional career goes back to 2010, so it's a big opportunity for this guy. It's one that he's waited for a long time. Sodiq, clearly, you expect him to be a big favorite. He is. He's minus 900 here, but in a weird circumstance where he was supposed to have this real big fight against Chikadze, close to a month ago. Now, maybe not a month, a few weeks. But, not the best circumstances. Are we still taking him at minus 900 given the change here?
You know what? Minus 900 is just a crazy number. But again, it's MMA and it makes sense. This is someone who's had success in the UFC against a guy who's making his UFC debut. You got 2 really solid kickboxers here. You know, this is going to be one of those fights where minus 900 is too crazy. I do think Youssef should get the win here. There's no question. But I think this one goes a little deeper than people are going to expect, even though that Don Shainis has had a lot of knockouts in the first round. I think he's going to be... Either he's going to pressure really hard early, or he's going to sit back and try to download a little bit of information. You know, Sodiq Youssef doesn't put out a ton of volume early. He takes a little bit of the fight to get going. I actually like the bet of this fight starting round 3. I believe we're either going to get anywhere from plus 105 to minus 105. You know, Sodiq Youssef's the type of fighter. He was preparing for Giga Chikadze. Now he's getting a newcomer. I think all the pressure is on him. This is... if he loses this fight, it's a really bad look. And if he wins this fight, he's supposed to. So I think for him, he's going to be really careful. I think this fight gets to the 3rd round, and we cash that ticket there.
I like what you're saying, man. What you're saying makes sense. We don't even need to make it to the whole distance. We just got to get into that 3rd round. Okay, let's move to John Castaneda versus Daniel Santos. Castaneda, he's coming off back-to-back finishes against Eddie Wineland, Miles Johns. He's taking on Santos, who is 27. He's got 1 appearance in the UFC. He lost to Julio Arce. He was an underdog in that bout. What do you think of this 145-pound matchup? You got Santos coming in at plus 160, so a little bit of value there if you think this guy can get a win in his sophomore UFC appearance.
I think this is a really tough matchup for Santos to fight after coming off a loss. Listen, debuting against Julio Arce was one thing. We were there for that fight live, and he looked pretty good in the first round, but then Arce took over. And Arce is a skilled guy who's been in the UFC for a little bit. I thought that was a tough matchup to start off with. He's now getting a guy in Castaneda who's red hot, coming off an extremely impressive win over Miles John. I just don't see Santos winning anywhere in this fight. He's an explosive fighter. He's got the skills. I just think sometimes when you jump into the UFC, you get a fight like Arce to debut. If you don't get the win, take a step back, get someone else who's kind of making their name for themselves early. But Castaneda looked great in his last 2 fights. I think Castaneda gets the win here pretty dominantly. So we're going to go that way. I just don't see where Santos wins this fight. Castaneda's got the cardio. We saw that. He's got the volume, the striking. And he fought an elite wrestler like Miles Johns and was not even remotely phased. Give me Castaneda in this one.
All right, sounds like a pretty confident pick there towards the end of that main card by Ian on the side of Castaneda. Let's round this thing out with Vyacheslav Borshev versus Mike Davis. You got Borshev coming in at plus 150. Mike Davis, he actually fought Sodiq Youssef on Contender Series. He fought Gilbert Burns in his UFC debut. So this guy has been in the octagon with some high talent guys. He's 9-2 overall, and he comes in at this one at minus 175. What do we think of this matchup?
Sometimes you got to look at your opponent, skill set, matchup. For me, Mike Davis is a guy, first of all, he looks like he's in tremendous shape. He's a good striker. Gilbert Burns in your UFC debut is not fun. He looked great against Mason Jones. He looked really solid in his last fight where he got a strong win. And now I saw online, he was posting shots of Rodolfo Vieira bringing in, so he's obviously focusing on the ground game. And that's because his opponent, Vyacheslav Borshev, was completely exposed in his last fight against Diakasi, where he was out-wrestled, out-grinded, had no response to any of the wrestling or jiu-jitsu on the ground for 3 rounds. He did impress on the Contender Series with a knockout. However, we now know what he is. He's either a knockout or, in my opinion, doesn't get the win here. I think Davis is actually the more technical striker, better boxer, and will be the better wrestler here. If he takes the path of least resistance, uses the striking, get the wrestling going, I really like Davis here. I think for Vyacheslav, if he has no takedown defense like he did in his last fight, it's going to be a long 3 rounds for him.
All right, so finishing out the card with some confident picks against some guys who are favored, but Ian's saying that they are favored for a reason. Let's go to a featured prelim of the night. It is 2 guys I feel like I've been watching since I was a little boy, Ian. Ilir Latifi taking on Olynyk, a fight between 2 veterans. You got Ilir Latifi being -175. Olynyk, he's no stranger to cash in as an underdog. 45 years old, 47 submission wins. How is that even possible? What do you think of this heavyweight matchup?
I don't even mean to laugh. This is the matchup that we don't. This is a great matchup. You know what? Olynyk came back in that last fight against Jared Vanderaa, which Vanderaa looked pretty good, made a mistake going to the ground there. But for Olynyk, we know how this goes. He's going to throw wild overhand shots. He wants to get the fight to the ground. He wants to submit you. But how do you choke out a guy who doesn't have a neck? Ilir Latifi legitimately goes shoulders, skull. And this is a guy who carries power for days. You know, and it looks like Olynyk, Alexei Olynyk just always gets hurt on the feet and has to come back. I think Ilir Latifi looks pretty good against Tanner Boser. He is flexible enough to get that kick up there, but don't do that against a guy like Olynyk who can take you down. And I think Latifi's power, his strength, and his wrestling from top position will really help here. You know, this is a fun fight against 2 guys that are, are past their prime, we could say at best. But Latifi looked pretty solid against Boser. Just stay away from that Ezekiel choke, and I think Latifi should get the win here. The guy's got sledgehammers for fists. He's going to use it. Give me Latifi.
Listen, if there's one guy out there who can find a way to submit a man with no neck, it is Alexei Olynyk. But
It might be.
Ilir Latifi
It might be.
is the play in the featured prelim. Let's go through the rest of the prelims, Ian. We'll go rapid fire. Run down the card and tell me who we're betting on the prelims.
So we're going to go with Latifi or Olynyk. Baby Shark Tabitha Ricci. If that was anything -200 or lower, I would have fired away. -220 is just a little too much. Although if you want to bet that, I don't blame you. Silva versus Ronson, fight to not go the distance. I like that. Jocko, Brendan Allen. This is a very interesting fight. I'm actually surprised it's not on the main card. I expect that fight to go the full distance. Maxim Grishin versus Philip Lins. I like Grishin here. I like what he did against William Knight. He's a very smart fighter, very experienced. And Lins has just not showed us a whole lot outside of that fight against Praknio, but that really wasn't overly impressive. Stolyarenko versus Chandler. It's very simple. Stay away from the armbar and you win. I like Chandler in that one. I also think the fight goes the distance. Now, Guido Canetti versus Randy Costa. For me, that's a tough one. Costa has not shown any form of gas tank, although he should win this one. If he doesn't, oh my God. So I don't mind taking a shot at Canetti at +240, as crazy as that might sound.
Wow, taking a shot at Canetti +240. All right, let's go to the parlay. There's 13 fights on this card, so plenty to look at. Where are we going with the parlay this week?
So this one is going to be quite chalky. It's going to be a little safe in my opinion. We're going to go Randy Brown, Trinaldo, just to start round 2. Now, obviously, we don't bet that straight, but in a parlay, we're going to get some odds. I'm going to go with Barcelos over Jones. This is do or die for him. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. Youssef Zalal, the bet on the fight was round 3 here. We get to go fight to start round 2. And last but not least, Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci at -210. Let's have her as the anchor of that parlay. And we're going to get +262 odds on this one.
All right, +262 on 4 picks. +262 is great, but hey, long shot odds are even better. Where are we going with the long shot this week?
Yeah, this one's going to make you laugh. Guido Canetti at +240. If he can get this one done, I'm decently confident in the rest of this parlay. I think Chelsea Chandler, to me, that's a coin flip. Stay away from the armbar, Stolyarenko, and you are in the clear. Brendan Allen, I'm actually surprised he's the underdog against Jocko. I think if he can keep this fight, just don't be on your back against Jocko. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the better grappler. And last but not least, Xiaonan, again, don't get taken down. Keep this fight standing. And at 33892. You read that correctly. That's going to be our long shot. We're going to hit one of those this show. I'm telling you, this may be the one.
Yep, there he is, the close to 39-1 long shot odd. I love that segment added to this show. Okay, man, we've gone to the parlays, long shot parlays. We've gone through the entire card. Where are the best bets going this week, Ian?
Well, we had a break last week, so I was feeling a little generous. I'm giving out 6 this week. We're going to go over 2.5 rounds in the main event. Randy Brown by decision at plus odds. This one's a little chalky. I really like John Castaneda. Even at minus 190, I'm comfortable betting him there. Give me Ilir Latifi against Alexei Olynyk. I'm trying not to laugh, but at minus 175, I think his power, his wrestling, and having no neck is going to be huge there. Jocko Allen to go the distance at minus 165. And last but not least, Maxime Grishin over Linz at minus 180. And those are going to be your 6 best bets this week.
All right, we made it through it. Best bets, parlay, long shot, all of the breakdowns. Thank you so much for your insight, Ian, especially coming from Florida. Stay safe down there in Florida. I am in Vegas, but I would actually not be at the Apex this week because it is closed to media. Mackenzie Dern says it's because Mark Zuckerberg will be there. Dana, not exactly saying that was wrong, just saying that he did not rent out the Apex. So we'll see if we see a Mark Zuckerberg sighting on Saturday. Either way, hope we win you some money on UFC Fight Night. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care.